Hi, this is Recycle Michael, and I'm over at my friend's house who asked me to help them build a compost bin. And I'd like to show you this unique compost bin design that I think is probably the best thing to do for homeowners for composting. It's not plastic, it's 4 or 5 fence posts and some 1/2-inch screening, and you'll need a sledgehammer. It's a pretty easy, simple process. And so what we're looking to do is to create a cubic yard space for composting. And so out here on the ground, we have laid in a circle that's about 20-inch radius. And these rocks are where we're going to put our 5 fence posts. You can use 4 fence posts or 6. And so that's the process. And what we're trying to do here is stay away from plastic. A lot of the compost bins these days that are sold are made out of plastic, and of course plastic comes from oil and gas, and we want to try to avoid that. And this compost bin should last 2 or 3 times longer, 30 or 40 years probably. And I've had one at my house for 20 years, and it's just like new, and it'll last a long time. So thanks for joining us, and we'll get going on this build. Thank you. Okay, so what we're doing here is we've got 5 4-foot long fence posts, and we've laid out our somewhat circle here. And so we're looking for a 20-inch radius, where this is 40 inches in diameter. As you can see, it's gonna be circular. So we're gonna put a fence post at each one of these markers. And what we're trying to do here is to create at least a cubic yard of space, so that the heart or the center of the compost bin has enough material around it that it can continue to break down and be large enough. So that's one of the problems with some of the store-bought compost bins, is that they're not big enough to create the heat that's needed, and they don't let the weather and the atmosphere and the rain and the wind get to the compost material. So my friend here has this 4x4 post leveling device, so we're using that to kind of make sure that the posts are level. You can eyeball it if you want, but this is just another level of, just to make sure we got it pretty straight up, get that bubble level. So we're going to do that for the other 4 of the posts, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Thanks. Okay, so we have our 5 posts in, and one thing that's important is that the flat end of the post, it needs to be facing towards the center, so that these hooks out here can be accessible for the screening. When we wrap around, we may or may not use these hooks, but this way we've got the rounded edge out and the flat surface of the fence post towards the middle all the way around. And I just wanted to show you how this nice leveling device works. You can eyeball it if you want, but if you want to get it, you know, carpenter level, you can see it's square up and down all the way around. So we know all 5 of our fence posts are square with the world. And then another thing we discovered is that we don't want to be hitting on the top of this steel fence post and curling over sharp edges that somebody might get snagged on. So we used a 2x4, and we actually pounded on the 2x4, and it gives us a bigger area to strike against. So we learned that along the way. And then finally, we took a level, and we kind of want to make sure that roughly the 4 fence posts are approximately the same height, as not with the ground, but with the earth, so that everything is squared up. So we went around all the different positions, and we're pretty close. Doesn't have to be perfect. So that's where we are, and yeah, we're getting ready to wrap the fence on now. So here's the material we're using for the outside of the fence. It is, it's called fencing cloth, hardwire cloth, galvanized, so it'll last a long time, it won't rust. And this can be purchased at Lowe's or Home Depot or places like that. And it's 1/2-inch mesh. It's about the size you can get your little finger into between the squares. And it's 3 feet long. And you need at least 15 feet for this ring that we're making here. Our owners bought 25 feet just to be sure. And so this is what we're going to be wrapping around the outside. Okay, so we have our screen roughly placed around the fence posts, and we've got a little bit of an overlap here. And so we're going to go ahead and cut this with our shears. I think these are called sheet metal shears, but they're really good for wire screen. And we're just going to cut right along one of the wires all the way down to the bottom to get the piece that we need. Okay, so we're at a decision point here where we can go two different directions as we're wiring the screen to the poles, to the fence posts. We can either raise this up about 4 or 5 inches and wire it in place there so that we can get a shovel underneath to get the compost out, or we can bring the ends of the wire screen all the way down to the ground, and then with our cutters we can cut some windows and flip those flaps open for shoveling and getting your compost out. So it's kind of whatever works for you, either way you're going to want to be able to get to the good stuff that's going to work its way down to the bottom. You're going to put the beginning stuff in the top, the finished stuff's going to be down here, so you need a way to get to it, either with windows or lifting up the screen and wiring it in advance. Okay, so what we decided to do with this build is to raise the 3-foot screen up about 5 inches off the ground, so we can get our shovel in there with the shovel, with the pile of compost on it, and clear the bottom of the fence. So we think this is going to work pretty good. And then the next thing we did was on the fence posts. Most fence posts come with these hooks on them. So instead of wiring them every place, we hooked them over these hooks, and then we pounded these back and flattened them to clinch the fence to stay in place. And then finally, the security in one spot for each fence post, we did wire them with some galvanized wire. So we're getting really close to finishing up here. We have one more step, and that is to roll the top, and we'll be back and show you about that. Thanks. So our finishing step is to roll the top of the screen, and we found that's very beneficial so that there's not a sharp edge sticking up, and it actually contains some of the compost. If your pile gets all the way up to the top here, keeps the wind from blowing some things away. So we're going to go around and just roll the top. We've got a little bit of space above the fence post anyway, and so we're just going to secure that by just going around and doing a top roll. It also gives you something when you bring your kitchen compost container out to kind of tap against to get all the contents out of the compost container from your kitchen, your smaller gallon size or whatever size you use it in your house, as you bring it out here and empty it. Okay, so we're pretty well finished up here, and so we've got the top rolled, and what we noticed when we rolled this top, it added a level of rigidity to the whole surface around here, in addition to giving us something to dump our kitchen container on. And it seemed, I think they call it hoop strength in the engineering terms, but it looks very, very rigid. And if we had to do over in the laying out of the location of the poles, we would do this. So I would put a stake in the ground like this and get a string or a rope with maybe a paint can or maybe just scribe it with a stick and draw your circle all the way around so that you have a pattern to work from, because we scrambled a little bit trying to get the location, the exact location just exactly right for the 5 different fence posts. And it looks like 5 is a little bit better than 4 if you're going to use the fence post, so I would recommend going with 5. It gives a rounder shape. And then finally, for location for your compost bin, if possible, you want to be out in the open, but this is a spot that worked for my friends. What's going to happen is that these trees and bushes are going to send their roots over and they're going to love this delicious nutrients in the compost here. So from time to time, they're going to need to cut in and get the small rootlets out of their compost bin. But this is a nice shady location. It's convenient. They've even talked to their neighbors who over the fence can just add compost to the compost bin, so they're going to share with their neighbors. So that's a great idea. And so we've had fun with this build. It's taken us between 2 and 2.5 hours to do. So hopefully this is helpful for you and your building of your compost bin, and have fun with it, and happy composting. Thank you so much. Okay, so we've decided to make an improvement to our compost bin. Because we had the bottom opening, some of the papers were flying around the yard on a windy day, so we decided to take some of the screening that we had left over and make panels that pull out to contain. We want to be able to contain the contents in the compost bin, but also now we have great access for a shovel, and we can get to all different positions. And this is one of five of the stations, so each one of these around the circle has an access point with the hinge gate. So I really like this idea. My friends came up with it, and in the future if you decided to go with the openings, I would recommend it. And we're just using a stake to hold it in place. And one here. Yeah. So a lot of questions come up about what kind of things can we put into our compost bin. So generally about 25 to 30% of trash is compostable. So that's why it's really important to compost so that you can get to closer to a zero waste lifestyle. And so there are about up to 35 things, lots of things that most people don't know about. I'll just highlight a few, like human and dog hair, Q-tips made out of cardboard or wood stems, dust and dirt from floor sweepings, stale bread and crackers, of course, coffee grounds, tea, eggshells. And right down here, I experimented with the compostable plastic dinnerware. That didn't work for me, and I've since learned that has to go into a commercial composting facility. So I took that one off the list, and we got the drain catchings, floor sweepings, horse and cow manure. You can freeze the frame and get a copy of this list. And importantly, as much important is the things that do not put in. Of course, no plastic. Grease and oil will stop the decomposition process, so keep that out of there. Nothing cooked in oil, no storage receipts because it has a chemical bisphenol A on it. No meat, no cheese, no bread, no dairy, nothing sugary or sweet, that'll draw animals. And we talked about compostable dinnerware. Nothing, no seeds that will grow in there. You wouldn't want to put poison ivy or other poisonous plants. Anything made from pressure treated wood would not go in there. So my friends have this really nice device that they have underneath their kitchen counter for their compost container in their house. It's about a gallon's worth of material, and this is a week's worth for 2 people of compostable materials. And so as often as you can before it starts, this might smell a little bit after a week, so you want to get it out here and put it in your compost bin and let it go to work. Yeah. And so I've got my recycling shirt on. It says I support recycling, and also I like to wear my shirts more than one day. This is my friend Ben, Compost Ben. He's been living in our backyard now for about 15 years. And you might notice that he lives in our garden, our vegetable garden. And so when it rains, the nutrients that he creates feeds our plants. Right now it's early spring. We've got some onions coming up here and some garlic. And one of the interesting things about compost bin you stick your hand in here, it's really, really warm, almost hot in the center, because there's some biodegradation going on in there. And so what we try to do is we keep a bucket like this underneath our kitchen sink. Now this one's a little big. I think this is 2 gallon. A gallon and a half or 1 gallon I think would be better. And about every, I'd say a couple times a week, out here, and we empty it. I see coffee grounds and banana peels and some shreds of paper. And then what I like to do with a pitchfork is to always stir it, stir it in, mix it around. See some eggshells, orange peels, plants that are dried up from the florist, and let that sit, and as it biodegrades it works down into the bottom. And then in these little windows right here is the good stuff, the finished compost. And so this has probably been in there cooking for about a year, and it's ready to go. I put it in my garden, free fertilizer. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching.